And now, on This Week in History with Paul Waite.
Hello! And I'm actually being filmed again. Oh, hello, camera. Hello. Don't I look lovely and sexy today in my dark blue shirt, showing off my lovely brown arms and
your lovely
muscular
haircut.
torso.
Muscular torso. Look at those thick pectorals.
As I always say, I am the best fat cyclist in history. So, welcome to On This Week in History. The ever popular. We've got lots of ideas about rolling this out when we actually go fully DAB, and we've got lots of ideas about how to make aspirin really even better, but that's for another day. So, first fact today, 1607, massive flooding destroyed 200 miles of English coastline. That's amazing, isn't it?
Oh my God.
200 miles with 2,000 deaths. So that's 200 miles lost forever to the sea.
That's crazy, isn't it?
You know,
that's
so
absolutely crazy.
I presume this would be somewhere around Norfolk. You know, Norfolk.
We've had a lot of facts like this a few times.
Sorry, Drew. Innsmouth. Is that the town of Innsmouth that got buried?
Not sure, chap, to be honest.
If it is, there's a apparently you can still hear the church bell sometimes on the beach. It's like a ghost story thing.
I know what you mean. So moving on, quite a grisly one, this. 1661, Oliver Cromwell was ritually executed 2 years after he died.
Ooh.
So they dug up his skeleton, remains, and he was hung, drawn and quartered.
What's the point? Just to embarrass him and...
Well, yeah, it's like, you know... pooing on his memory, isn't it?
No, I know, but I just think it's so just pathetic.
No, I don't think it is, actually. If you were Charles II, Oliver Cromwell killed your dad.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, no, interesting.
Anyway, so that's quite an interesting fact, I think.
Yeah.
So in 1800, so we moved on quite a bit, just to make sure I'm right here. Yeah, so in 1800, the US, it's an interesting one for you guys, have a guess. So in 1800, what do you reckon the population of the USA was?
1800? Without doing any research of what it is now,
No, just say
1 million.
If you said it was 320 million now, Callum.
I would say 80 million then.
In 1800?
Well, I'd say 10 million.
50 million.
10 million.
10 million?
5.3 million.
Ooh. So I said 1 million first.
Yeah, in 1800, the population of the USA was 5.3 million.
Oh, we sprouted. We're like rabbits now.
Of whom 1 million were Afro-Americans.
Wow. So 1 in 5.
Yeah. Okay, so that's quite interesting.
Very interesting. I think it's amazing how much medicine's come along with that.
1856, the Victoria Cross was established.
Highest medal.
So can you think of the first conflict that...
Sorry, when did you say what date?
1856. Any idea when the first conflict Victoria Crosses would have been issued?
Crimean War?
Oh, God, so good. So good. Oh, I feel like a performing seal. I'm so proud of him.
Thanks, Dad.
Yes, that's really good. Yeah. And obviously, as we discussed last week, we had 11 Victoria Crosses awarded at Rorke's Drift, which is the single most number of VCs in any one engagement, I think so, from what I remember. 1861. So this is one of the things you got to remember, Callum, about the population of the USA. So in 1800, I think there were only, at the most, 11 states. Maybe less.
Yeah.
So in 1861, Kansas was admitted as a 34th state.
I see.
There being
Kansas.
50 states today, as you probably know, Drew.
This might be a stupid question.
So where did the 4 go?
Sorry?
54. Did you say 54 states and now they're
34.
50? Oh, 34. Sorry, I thought you said 54.
This might be a stupid question, but before, so what were the other, what were the other states at the time, if you know what I mean? So it was still North America.
Well, Oregon was British,
right?
For instance. Florida was.
It was British.
Yeah, some of them were independent, like Texas was independent.
States, the Lone Star State, as it's known.
So they were separate. They were not part of
the Union.
California was part of Mexico, obviously.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, it's even to this day. Lots of obviously San Diego, Los Angeles. They're all Mexican or Spanish names, aren't they?
Yeah. So what do we not know about history? Another one to I'd like to put one of these in every week. So you Americans, you really have got a lot to answer for. In 1863 was the Bear River Massacre, where the U.S. cavalry massacred hundreds and hundreds of Indians. Again, a huge number of them were children and women. So shame on you terrible people. 1873, a wonderful book, Around the World in 80 Days.
Oh,
Ever read it? Seen the film?
No.
Around the World in 80 Days by, do you know Alan?
No, Rudyard Kipling?
Jules Verne.
No, of course it's not Kipling. Not remember that. Yeah.
Jules Verne. He also wrote Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea.
Right,
Voyage, whatever it is. Yes, Around the World in 80 Days, all about Phileas Fogg. And he has a bet that he can get around the world in 80 days and get back to his gentleman's club at 12 o'clock 80 days later with his trusty accomplice, Passepartout. So there's a film made recently, about 5 years ago. Steve Coogan plays the part played by David Niven in the original film. So there we are. Talked far too much there. So the end of the first week in history.
On This Week in History.
And welcome back to On This Week in History. And it's actually quite hard work talking in, radio land and also in sort of TV land or whatever it is. Media land, maybe. What do you reckon it is, Drew?
Oh, it's Media Land.
It's Media Land. So, in 1883, the English cricket team was presented with the ashes of a bale after the Sydney Test. And this is what led to the Australia-England cricket series known as the Ashes. So basically, it was. I think there was a note, and it said basically the death of English cricket because we lost.
Yeah.
So England, obviously in those days, England thought they were better than everybody. Played cricket against these colonial people and got their asses kicked.
Yeah.
So the bales were cremated, put in an urn, which still exists today.
Yep.
Presented to the England team, and that's what became the Ashes. So, well done on the England cricket team for their 2-0 series win in Sri Lanka. Fantastic batting by Joe Root, who became the 6th highest scoring English cricketer of all time, overtaking Kevin Peterson. I think he's the first English cricketer for 40 years to get a double 100 and follow up over 150 in his next Test innings. So there we are. And my father and my favourite cricketer is Josh Butler, who I'm linked in. So Josh, if you are remotely listening to us, and you should, Josh, we love you. Keep up playing. Keep disciplined because you are a great player. Don't let them get you dropped. Okay. So moving on. As I've got to say, a people you have to admire immensely is the South Africans. So, of course, sorry to pick on you, Drew. I'm just interested. Do you know what country the Boers came from in South Africa?
Nope.
So today, do you know the South Africa is made up of English people and obviously coloured people? And do you know what other nation is sort of mixed in with them?
In South Africa?
Yeah.
No.
Dutch.
Dutch? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the Dutch, and they're called the Afrikaans.
That's
Oh, Afrikaans.
There's
yeah.
lots of people with a name like Van der Linde and stuff like that.
So if you look at the South African rugby team, it's got people like Van der Merwe,
Yeah.
Botha,
Lots of vans.
I've heard of the language
Botha,
Afrikaans
Van
as well.
Rensburg,
Yeah.
people like that.
Lots of vans and durs.
So Schmidt, obviously. It's actually American. Anyway, one thing you got to say. So there was two wars between the Boers and the Brits in South Africa, who were basically fighting for control over who controlled it. And in 1900, the Boers defeated the British at Spion Kop. This was actually the first of several victories the Boers had over us. Obviously, bearing in mind we were supposed to be the most powerful nation in the world at this time, so we got beaten by a load of I suppose you'd call them sort of bandits almost.
Yeah,
I suppose,
sure.
You know. One of the things that's interesting. So those of you who support Liverpool FC will know that the ground at Liverpool is known as the Kop, which comes of the Battle of Spion Kop. So there we are. So, bringing you education every day. So, moving on, we go to 1933, and Marshal Hindenburg, who was originally the leader of the German army in the First World War and was the president of Germany, very foolishly appointed Hitler as the Reichschancellor. It was interesting. There was a lot of he received a lot of criticism at the time from other prominent Germans to basically say, what the hell have you done? And obviously what he did was unleash one of the most terrible people in world history. It's quite startling, but one thing we have to remember is the Germans did vote for him.
Yep, that's right.
And I think one should never forget that. These days,
it's a very important lesson.
These days, people are very politically correct and make out. Oh, I've just realised I've missed some. So we're going to have to go back a bit now. In 1819, sorry about this. In 1819, Sir Stanford Raffles lands in Singapore. Now, what's rather wonderful about this is I have been to Singapore, and I have been to the Raffles Hotel, which is a very famous hotel in Singapore. It has a Sikh guard outside who wants something. He's very famous in himself. So one of the highlights of my life was sitting there with one of my best chums of all time, Dean Robinson. Shout out to you, Dean, you wonderful man in Brisbane. Probably the best man to get drunk with I've ever had in my life. And I was sat there in Raffles Bar drinking my Stolly.
Stollischneuer.
We had a wonderful buffet. It cost £30 each with quail's eggs and all sorts.
Wow, that sounds nice. How did you find Singapore? I've heard it's a beautiful city.
Oh, just the best. The cleanest place I've ever been to.
Like really
just
clean.
Unbelievable. It made you ashamed to be English. So I've gone over it, but I'm just going to try and get one more fact in. In 1887, the world's largest ever snowflake.
Really?
Can you have a guess how big it was?
I don't know, a metre?
You silly boy. Can you imagine a snowflake in a metre? You wouldn't
fall on somebody.
You wouldn't want it to land on you, would you? God, sugar, Ray, let it.
What's that, like 5 inches?
15 inches by 8.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
That's a big old...
So there we are. I hope you enjoyed the second part of On This Week in History.
Bringing you the news of old on This Week in History with Paul Waite.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. Yeah, Callum and I are very proud to say that the origins of our name, Waite, are watchmen. So the Waites used to go around the battlements and the walls
Homesteads.
shouting out.
Yeah, you used to walk around at night, making sure that basically nobody was raping, defiling, stealing.
And making public announcements.
The Watchman.
I think it's a Saxon name. Yes, a Saxon word, Waite, W-A-I-T, comes from, that means watcher.
Anyway, so another fact, in 1887, work began on the Eiffel Tower, which I think... when it was finished, was for a while the tallest structure in the world of its kind. I'm not entirely sure of that, but I think it's true.
Probably.
Moving on, a fact which people will know that Ghandi is an idol of mine. So in 1948, Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated by Nathuram Godse, who was a Hindu extremist, fundamentalist, who didn't obviously agree with Gandhi's cross-liberal, multi-faith policies. Terrible shame that a man of such peace who abhorred violence should meet his end that way. But I suppose, in a way, he became a martyr.
Yeah, definitely.
Which often happens with great people like him.
It's interesting. You don't really hear of very many extremist Hindus, do you? You don't, yeah.
Well, those
like
days
the only
we
one I've heard.
probably don't have the time today.
Yeah.
In 1958, the Lego company patented Lego bricks. Can you imagine? It actually wasn't called Lego to start with.
Was it not?
For about a year, it was called something else, but I can't remember what it
That's
was.
Dutch. Oh, no, Danish. Danish is Lego. It's Danish, I'm sure it is.
Yeah, I think
sure
it's European for sure.
Danish, I'm sure it is.
Okay. So in 1965, Winston Churchill's state funeral at St. Paul's, which was the world's largest ever state funeral.
Oh.
And very fitting, I think, that it was. And just to show what an odd little boy I was, bearing in mind, so I don't know how many little boys you could say that 5 years old, I'm 5 years old, I actually had a scrapbook with loads of cuttings of Churchill's funeral in.
Oh,
Nice.
With press cuttings and all that.
Always been a fan of Churchill.
Well, just,
yeah.
just interesting things. And any of you who go to my house today, you'll see that I've got Winston Churchill memorabilia all over the house, all sorts of things. So he's just an absolute legend. 1972, Pakistan withdrew from the Commonwealth.
That was a shit.
I have to say,
bad move.
Not surprising.
I think General Zia was the Prime Minister at the time, and Pakistan's obviously been at odds with India for most of the time since 1948. Since,
And Bangladesh.
Interesting on that one.
Yeah.
Since partition. I think I'm right in saying that Pakistan is now back in the Commonwealth.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure it is, yeah. So, another fact in 1972, again, we talked about this last week. The opening song, Drew, of last week's Irish special was Sunday, Bloody Sunday. And would you believe it? 1972, Bloody Sunday comes up on This Week in History. So I said 24 people were shot. In fact, it was 27. 27 people were shot, of which 14 were killed. So it's gone down in sort of folklore, or whatever you want to call it, in Republican Irish republicanism. And we haven't got time today to talk about the whys and wherefores of it, but it's a significant moment in history. 1975, so sort of building on the Lego thing, Erno Rubik.
We all know what he did.
He applied for a patent for the Rubik Cube. And again, it was originally called the Magic Cube.
Oh, was it?
The Magic Cube.
Yeah, I got to say, I don't mind admitting that I'm a buffoon. I actually bought a Rubik Cube. Do you know I can't do it?
Really?
No, Wrecking Users. Sorry,
Yeah.
Wrecking Users. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rucking. I said.
Yeah, that's good.
Wrecking Users. Just can't do it. So
funny,
there we
isn't
are. It is. I think we've only got one fact left. Isn't that a miracle? How do we manage that? Anyway, so one for Callum, who was a big fan of this guy. So fortunately, we do have a little bit of time to talk about him.
Nice.
Mike Tyson.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So,
Iron
not a very
Fist.
savoury fact, mind. In 1992, Mike Tyson was found guilty of rape.
Yeah. What was their name? Robin something.
Robin Redbreast.
I have to say, as I've
Wasn't
matured,
even funny. Sorry.
as I've matured as a man, I actually am nowhere near as much of a fan of Mike Tyson as I used to be. I respect the fact that he was an absolutely great boxer, but I think the immature, I think the young man in me, the immature man, thought he was a badass. But I think as I've grown, I've actually become more of a fan of Evander Holyfield, and I've always really liked Lennox Lewis. But the boxer of that era that I like, the heavyweight boxer, is Lennox Lewis by far. He's my favourite of that era.
That's interesting. You said he was great. I mean, he was like, I'd say he was like an improved version of Joe Frazier.
Yeah, sure.
Personally, I think Joe Frazier was world champion back in the 70s, and I think that Tyson was a better version of him. But I think one of the really great boxers, I think someone like Foreman at his best would completely annihilate him.
I do think that Tyson is overrated, definitely. Some people say he's like the greatest heavyweight of all time. I don't think that's the case.
So we have to end it there.
Aspen Weight Radio Podcasts. Educate, entertain, enjoy.